The rain hammered against the windows of the roadside diner like nature's own percussion, each drop a reminder of the chaos Celeste Ashworth had left behind. She sat in the corner booth, her once pristine wedding dress now a sodden mess of silk and lace, her bare feet tucked beneath her on the cracked vinyl seat. The mascara had long since given up its fight against her tears, leaving dark trails down her cheeks like war paint. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, a weathered face, had stopped asking questions after the third refill of coffee. Instead, she simply placed a plate of untouched pie in front of Celeste and whispered, "Honey, whatever you're running from, you're safe here." But Celeste knew better. There was no such thing as safety when your father was Victor Ashworth, a man who treated his daughter's life like a corporate merger. The wedding dress clung to her skin, heavy with rain and regret. She had made it exactly 17 minutes into the ceremony before bolting, leaving 300 guests, a furious groom, and a father who would never forgive her. The bell above the diner door chimed, and Celeste looked up to see a man stepping in from the storm. He was tall, with dark hair plastered to his forehead, and a suit that even soaked through looked expensive. His eyes swept the nearly empty diner before settling on her, and for a moment neither of them moved. Nathan Cross had been driving for hours, fleeing his own demons when the storm forced him to seek shelter. He'd expected to find truckers and late-night shift workers, not a woman in a wedding dress who looked like she'd been through a war. Something about her struck him immediately, not her beauty, though she was stunning despite her disheveled state, but the raw desperation in her eyes. It was a look he recognized, having seen it in his own mirror during his darkest moments. "Coffee?" the waitress asked him, already reaching for the pot. "Please." He slid into the booth across from Celeste, without invitation, his movements deliberate and confident. "Rough night?" Celeste let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that." She studied his face, noting the sharp cheekbones and the way his eyes seemed to see too much. "You don't look like the type who ends up in roadside diners at midnight." "Neither. Do you? Especially not in a wedding dress." Nathan accepted his coffee with a nod to the waitress. "Want to talk about it?" "Not particularly." Celeste wrapped her hands around her mug, seeking its warmth. "What about you? What's your story?" Nathan considered his answer carefully. He could tell her about the board meeting that had gone sideways, about the hostile takeover attempt he'd spent months fighting, about the loneliness that had driven him to take this late-night drive. Instead, he simply said, "Sometimes you need to get away from your life for a while. Must be nice to have that luxury." The words came out sharper than Celeste intended. "Some of us don't get to choose when we walk away." "Is that what you're doing? Walking away?" Celeste met his gaze, seeing something there that made her want to tell him everything. There was no judgment in his eyes, no pity, just a quiet understanding that she hadn't expected from a stranger. "I'm trying to. But it's not that simple when your entire life has been planned out for you since birth. Arranged marriage? Business. Merger disguised as holy matrimony." She took a sip of coffee, grimacing at its bitter taste. "My father needed the connection, and Julian Blackthorne needed a wife with the right bloodline. I was just the commodity that made it all work." Nathan leaned back, processing this information. He'd heard of Julian Blackthorne old money, older traditions, and a reputation for getting what he wanted. "So you ran." "I ran." Celeste's voice was barely above a whisper. "Right down the aisle, through the garden, and into the storm. I didn't even grab shoes. That took courage. That was desperation." She looked down at her hands, noting the absence of the engagement ring she'd left on the altar. "And it won't matter. He'll find me. He always does." Something in her tone made Nathan's jaw tighten. "Your father?" "My father, Julian. They're security teams. They have resources I can't even imagine. This is just borrowed time." Celeste raised her eyes to meet his again, and Nathan saw the exact moment she made a decision. "Can I ask you something?" "Ask away." "Are you married? Engaged? Involved with anyone?" Nathan frowned at the sudden change in direction. "No. Why?" Celeste took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "Because I need your help, and I'm willing to pay for it. I don't need money. Not money." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely audible. "I need you to sleep with me." Nathan blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "I know how it sounds, but listen to me." Celeste's words came out in a rush. "Julian and his family are obsessed with purity. Old-fashioned, archaic ideas about bloodlines and virtue. The marriage contract specifically states that if I'm not ... intact, the deal is void. If I can't deliver what they paid for, they'll walk away. And you think sleeping with a stranger will solve your problems? I think it's the only way to break the chains." Celeste's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I've never had a choice about anything, not my education, not my career, not my future. But I can choose this. I can choose you." Nathan stared at her, recognizing the depth of her desperation. He'd built his empire on reading people, and everything about Celeste Ashworth screamed authenticity. This wasn't a game or a manipulation. This was a woman fighting for her freedom with the only weapon she had left. "You don't know anything about me," he said quietly. "I know you're kind enough to sit with a stranger in a diner. I know you haven't tried to take advantage of my situation. I know you're the first person who's looked at me like I'm human instead of property." Celeste reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. "Please, I'm not asking for love or romance. I'm asking for freedom." Nathan looked down at their touching hands, feeling something shift in his chest. He'd spent years building walls around his heart, protecting himself from the kind of vulnerability that had destroyed his mother. But sitting across from this brave, broken woman, he felt those walls beginning to crack. "Where would you go?" he asked. "After? I don't know. Somewhere he can't find me. Somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not being somebody's daughter or somebody's bride." Nathan made a decision that would change everything. "I have a cabin about an hour from here. It's remote, private. You could stay there while you figure things out. And the other thing?" Nathan's eyes met hers, and for a moment the diner fell away. There was only her courage, her desperation, and the unexpected connection crackling between them. "We'll figure it out." As they left the diner together, neither of them noticed the black sedan parked across the street or the man inside speaking quietly into his phone. The hunt for Celeste Ashworth had already begun, and the stranger she'd chosen to trust was about to become the most dangerous man her father had ever encountered. The storm was far from over. The cabin was nothing like Celeste had expected. When Nathan had mentioned a remote retreat, she'd imagined something rustic, maybe a hunting lodge with rough-hewn logs and basic amenities. Instead, she found herself standing in what could only be described as architectural poetry. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a private lake. Smart home technology responded to Nathan's voice commands, and the kitchen looked like it belonged in a design magazine. "This is your idea of a simple cabin?" she asked, running her fingers along the marble countertop. Nathan shrugged, hanging his still damp jacket on a hook near the door. "I like my privacy, but I don't believe in roughing it." He moved to the kitchen, pulling ingredients from the well-stocked refrigerator. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't diner pie?" Celeste realized she couldn't remember. The wedding preparations had consumed days of her life, leaving little time for actual nourishment. "I don't know. 2 days ago, maybe. Sit." Nathan's tone brooked no argument. "You're going to eat, then shower, then sleep. Everything else can. Wait until tomorrow. She wanted to argue, to insist they address the elephant in the room, her desperate proposition from the diner. But exhaustion was finally catching up with her, and the adrenaline that had carried her through her escape was fading fast. She settled onto one of the bar stools, watching Nathan work with practiced efficiency. "You cook?" she asked, surprised by this domestic side of him. "I've lived alone for a long time. It was either learn or survive on takeout." He cracked eggs into a bowl, his movements precise and confident. "What about you? Any hidden culinary talents?" Celeste laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I was trained in the social graces. Piano, French, proper posture, how to plan a charity gala. Actual life skills weren't part of the curriculum." Nathan paused in his whisking, studying her face. "That sounds like a lonely way to grow up." "It was preparation, or so I was told." She traced patterns on the marble with her finger. "Everything I learned was designed to make me a perfect wife for someone like Julian. I can discuss literature and art, but I've never chosen a book for pleasure. I can plan events for 300 people, but I've never thrown a birthday party for a friend. What would you choose?" Nathan asked, sliding a plate of perfectly scrambled eggs and toast in front of her. "If you could do anything tomorrow, what would it be?" Celeste considered the question while taking her first bite. The eggs were creamy and perfectly seasoned, better than anything she'd ever tasted. "I'd want to walk in the woods, barefoot, without anyone watching me or telling me to be careful about my appearance." She paused, surprised by her own honesty. "What about you? What do you do when you're not rescuing runaway brides?" Something flickered across Nathan's face, a moment of hesitation that didn't go unnoticed. "I work. A lot. Maybe too much." "What kind of work?" "Business development. Consulting." The words came out smoothly, but Celeste sensed there was more he wasn't saying. Nothing very exciting. Before she could press further, Nathan's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "I need to take this. It's my assistant. She worries if I disappear for too long." "At 2 in the morning?" "She's dedicated." Nathan stepped onto the deck, sliding the glass door closed behind him. Celeste watched him through the window, noting the way his posture changed as he spoke. Gone was the relaxed stranger from the diner. This was someone used to command, too, making decisions that mattered. Curiosity getting the better of her, she moved closer to the window, not to eavesdrop, but to study his profile in the moonlight. "No, Margaret, I'm fine," Nathan was saying, his voice carrying through the glass. "Cancel the morning meetings. Reschedule the board presentation for next week. And make sure the Yamamoto deal stays under wraps until—" He turned and saw Celeste, watching, cutting himself off mid-sentence. Their eyes met through the glass, and Celeste felt a chill that had nothing to do with the late hour. Board presentations. The Yamamoto deal. These weren't the concerns of a simple business consultant. Nathan ended the call and returned inside, but the easy atmosphere between them had shifted. "Sorry about that. Who are you?" Celeste asked quietly. "I told you." "No, you didn't." "You told me what you wanted me to think." She stepped back, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she was, alone in a remote cabin with a man she didn't know. "The way you talk, this place, your assistant calling you at 2 a.m. about board meetings and deals. You're not some random consultant, are you?" Nathan closed his eyes, running a hand through his hair. When he opened them again, Celeste saw resignation there. "No, I'm not." "Then who are you?" "Nathan Cross, CEO of Cross Industries." The name hit Celeste like a physical blow. Cross Industries, one of the largest tech conglomerates in the world. She'd seen Nathan's face on magazine covers, though never in person. The photographs hadn't captured the intensity of his presence, the way he seemed to command space just by existing. Oh God. She sank onto the couch, her legs suddenly unsteady. You're him. You're the Nathan Cross, the one the media calls the Ice King of Silicon Valley. I prefer to think of myself as selectively focused. Why didn't you tell me? Nathan moved to the window, staring out at the lake. Because for the first time in years, someone was talking to me like I was human instead of a walking net worth statement. Do you know how rare that is? Celeste stared. At his back, trying to process this revelation. Your net worth is probably more than my father's entire empire. Money isn't everything. Easy to say when you have it. The words came out sharper than she intended. I'm sorry. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And you're right. Nathan turned back to face her. I have advantages you don't. Resources, connections, power. But I also have something else. I have a choice about who I want to be. That's something your father can't buy or control. He'll destroy you if he finds out you're helping me. He can try. Nathan's voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath the surface. I've been destroyed before. I survived. I rebuilt. I'm not afraid of Victor Ashworth. You should be. Celeste's voice was barely above a whisper. You don't know what he's capable of. And tell me. For the next hour, Celeste told him everything. About her mother's mysterious death when she was 12, officially ruled a suicide, but surrounded by questions no one was allowed to ask. About the business rivals who had experienced sudden financial ruin after crossing her father. About the private investigators, the surveillance, the way Victor Ashworth treated his daughter's life like a chess game where she was always a pawn, never a player. Nathan listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. He's not going to stop looking for you, he said finally. No, he's not. And when he finds you, because he will find you, he's going to come after me too. Celeste nodded, tears threatening again. I should go. I should leave before. You're not going anywhere. Nathan's voice was firm. I made you a promise, and I keep my promises, even when keeping them might cost you everything. Nathan crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair, his hands covering hers. Celeste, I've spent the last 10 years building walls around my heart. I've convinced myself that isolation was strength, that caring about people was weakness. But sitting in that diner tonight, watching you fight for your freedom with nothing but raw courage, you reminded me who I used to be, who I want to be again. I don't understand. I'm falling for you. The words seemed to surprise him as much as they did her. I know it's crazy. I know it's fast. But I haven't felt this alive in years, and I'm not walking away from that. I'm not walking away from you. Celeste stared at him, her heart racing. You don't know me. Not really. I know enough. I know you're brave enough to run toward an unknown future rather than accept a life that would slowly kill your spirit. I know you're kind enough to worry about a stranger's welfare, even when you're fighting for your own survival. I know you're strong enough to walk away from everything you've ever known because you believe in something better. And I know you're honorable enough to offer help without expecting anything in return, she whispered. Even when a desperate woman throws herself at you in a diner. Nathan's thumb traced across her knuckles. About that ... double quotes. I meant what I said. I need to break that contract. And I meant what I said about figuring it out. But not like this. Not when you're vulnerable and scared and running on empty. Nathan stood, pulling her up with him. When? It happens if it happens. It's going to be because we both want it, not because you need to escape a cage. Celeste felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. Nathan smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Now, get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning your real escape. As Celeste headed toward the guest room, she turned back. "Nathan? Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started." After she disappeared down the hallway, Nathan stood alone in his living room, staring at his phone. 3 missed calls from his head of security, 2 from his legal team, and 17 messages from his assistant. The outside world was already demanding his attention, but for the first time in years, he didn't want to answer. Instead, he thought about the woman sleeping in his guest room. Brave, broken, beautiful Celeste Ashworth. He'd told her he was falling for her, and the truth of it terrified him. But some risks were worth taking, and some fights were worth having. Across town, in the penthouse office of Ashworth Industries, Victor Ashworth studied a series of photographs. Spread across his mahogany desk, security footage from the diner, a partial license plate from the parking lot, and a blurry image of his daughter getting into an expensive car with a tall stranger. Find out who he is, Victor told the private investigator sitting across from him, and find out everything about him. Weaknesses, vulnerabilities, pressure points. I want to know what it will take to make him disappear. The investigator nodded and gathered the photos. What about your daughter, sir? Victor's smile was cold enough to freeze blood. My daughter will come home, one way or another. The war for Celeste's freedom was about to begin, and neither side was prepared for the casualties it would claim. Celeste woke to the sound of helicopters dot the distant thrum of rotor blades, pulled her from the deepest sleep she'd had in weeks, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back the cabin. Nathan, her father's inevitable pursuit. She stumbled to the window, her heart hammering as she searched the morning sky. They're not his, Nathan's voice came from behind her. He stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee, his expression grim. Search and rescue training exercise. But it won't be long before they are. Celeste accepted the coffee with shaking hands. How long do we have? My security team ran a preliminary sweep this morning. They found surveillance equipment on the road leading here, professional grade, installed sometime after midnight. Nathan moved to stand beside her at the window. Your father's people are good, the best money can buy. Celeste sipped her coffee, trying to calm her nerves. What do we do? We have options. I can have you on a plane to anywhere in the world within 2 hours. New identity, new life, enough money to disappear forever, and leave you to face whatever he throws at you alone. Celeste shook her head. I won't do that. This isn't your fight anymore. It's mine now. It became my fight the moment I ran. Down that aisle, Celeste turned to face him fully. I'm tired of running, Nathan. I'm tired of being afraid. If we're going to do this, we do it together. Nathan studied her face, seeing the determination there. Together could mean losing everything. My company, my reputation, maybe more. And running could mean losing each other. I won't trade your safety for my freedom. Celeste reached for his hand. Besides, you said it yourself, you've been destroyed before. You survived. This is different. This is Nathan's phone buzzed with an emergency alert. He glanced at the screen and cursed. Under his breath. Margaret. She says there's been a development. The call connected on speaker, and Margaret's crisp voice filled the cabin. Nathan, we have a problem. The Seattle Times is running a story in tomorrow's edition. Tech mogul's secret romance with runaway heiress. They have photos. Celeste felt the blood drain from her face. What kind of photos? You leaving the diner together. Him helping you into his car. The 2 of you at the cabin windows last night. The long-range telephoto shots are quite clear. Margaret's tone was professionally neutral, but Celeste could hear the concern underneath. The article speculates about everything from kidnapping to a deliberate plot to sabotage the Ashworth-Blackthorne merger. How bad is it? Nathan asked. The board is calling an emergency meeting. 3 major investors have already requested calls. And Nathan? Margaret paused. Julian Blackthorne's legal team has filed a civil suit claiming you interfered with a binding contract. They're seeking damages in the hundreds of millions. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Cancel all my meetings today? I need to think. Nathan, you should know your head of security received a call this morning. Victor Ashworth wants to meet. Today. He says he has a proposition. After Margaret hung up, the cabin fell silent, except for the distant sound of the helicopters. Celeste stared. Out at the lake, watching the morning mist rise from the water like ghosts. He's offering you a way out, she said quietly. Whatever he wants to discuss, it's probably a deal. Your company in exchange for me. I don't make deals with men who terrorize their own daughters. You might not have a choice. Celeste turned back to him. Nathan, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Always. Do you regret it? Helping me? Nathan crossed the room and cupped her face in his hands. The only thing I regret is not finding you sooner. Before she could respond, he kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, then deeper as she melted into him. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. I should have asked. Nathan began, but Celeste silenced him with a finger to his lips. I've been waiting for you to do that since last night. She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Whatever happens next, I needed to know what that felt like. What felt like? Choosing to be kissed by someone I care about. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I've never had that before. Nathan pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. We're going to figure this out. I promise. I know we are. Celeste's voice was steady now, resolved. But first, I need to do something I should have done a long time ago. What's that? I need to call my father. An hour later, Celeste sat at Nathan's kitchen island with his secure phone in her hands. Nathan had tried to talk her out of it, but she'd been firm. If this was going to end, it would end on her terms. Victor Ashworth answered on the first ring. Celeste. Hello, Father. Her voice was steadier than she felt. You've caused quite a stir, darling. Julian is beside himself. The Blackthorns are threatening to withdraw from all our joint ventures. Do you have any idea what your little tantrum has cost me? I'm not coming back. Of course you are. You're my daughter. You belong to me until I decide otherwise. Victor's voice was silk over steel. Though I admit, your choice of companions is ... interesting. Nathan Cross. Impressive net worth, but terrible judgment apparently. Leave him out of this. I'm afraid that's not possible. You see, your boyfriend has something that belongs to me, and I always collect what's mine. Celeste's grip tightened on the phone. I'm not property. Aren't you? I fed you, clothed you, educated you, shaped you into exactly what you needed to be. Every decision about your life has been mine to make. That doesn't change because you had a moment of rebellion. I'm 26 years old. I can make my own choices. Can you? Then choose, Celeste. Come home willingly. Marry Julian as planned, and Mr. Cross keeps his little empire intact. Or continue this charade, and I'll destroy everything he's built, starting with the Yamamoto deal he thinks is so secret. The line went dead, and Celeste sat staring at the phone. Nathan appeared at her shoulder, his expression dark. He knows. About Yamamoto, she said quietly. How is that possible? Because he's been planning this longer than we realized. Nathan took the phone from her nerveless fingers. The surveillance, the leaked photos, the lawsuit, it's all coordinated. He's been watching me for weeks, maybe months. But why? Because he knew this day would come. He knew you'd run eventually, and he wanted to be ready. Nathan moved to his laptop, his fingers flying over the keys. "Margaret, I need you to run a deep background check on every person who's had access to the Yamamoto negotiations. Someone's been feeding information to Victor Ashworth." "Already on it," Margaret's voice came through the speakers. "But Nathan, there's something else. Rebecca Stone from the Financial Herald is here. She says she has information about the Ashworth family that you need to see. Send her up." Rebecca Stone was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, with the kind of presence that commanded attention. She entered the cabin 20 minutes later, carrying a thick folder and wearing the expression of someone who'd seen too much and forgotten too little. "Mr. Cross, Miss Ashworth." She nodded to each of them. "I've been investigating the Ashworth family for 3 years. What I've found, ... Well, let's just say your father has more enemies than friends." She spread photographs and documents across the coffee table. "Sarah Ashworth, your mother, officially ruled a suicide, but the coroner's report raises questions. Toxicology showed traces of a rare compound that wouldn't normally be tested for unless specifically requested." Celeste stared at a photo of her mother, young and smiling. "I knew it. I always knew he killed her. There's more. 3 other business rivals who died under suspicious circumstances. 2 journalists who were investigating him who died in accidents. A federal prosecutor who was building a case against him for tax evasion heart attack at 38, perfectly healthy until the day he died." Nathan studied the documents. "Why hasn't anyone gone after him?" "Because he's very good at making problems disappear. And because he has friends in very high places." Rebecca pulled out another folder. "But he's made a mistake this time. He's targeted someone with resources to fight back." "Me," Nathan said. "You. And more importantly, someone willing to protect what he values most." Rebecca looked at Celeste. "You're not just his daughter. You're his conscience. The one person whose opinion of him still matters. He's terrified of losing you, because without you, he's just a monster." "Then we use that," Celeste said quietly. "We make him choose between his empire and his daughter." "Celeste, no," Nathan started, but she was already shaking her head. "Yes, it's the only way this ends." She looked at Rebecca. "Can you protect these documents? Make sure they get to the right people if something happens to us?" "Already done. Copies are with the FBI, the SEC, and 3 major newspapers." Rebecca smiled grimly. "Your father's reign of terror is about to end." As Rebecca left, Celeste and Nathan stood alone in the cabin that had become their sanctuary. Outside, the helicopters had returned, circling closer this time. "Are you ready for this?" Nathan asked, watching the aircraft through the window. "I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it yet." Celeste took his hand, their fingers intertwining. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know something." "What's that?" "I'm falling in love with you, too. And for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of what that means." Nathan pulled her, close as the helicopters landed on the far shore of the lake. "Then let's go show your father what his daughter is really made of." As they walked toward the door together, Celeste felt something she'd never experienced before, the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, with exactly the person she was meant to be with. The war for her freedom was far from over. But for the first time, she believed she could win it. The final battle was about to begin.